In the 1970s, DC unleashed Darkseid, a tyrant from Apocalypse, obsessed with control, seeking the anti-life equation to erase free will itself. Cold, absolute, and terrifying. Then just a few years later, Marvel answered back with Thanos, and fans couldn't ignore it. The armor, the grin, the hunger for control. It wasn't a coincidence, it was a challenge. Even creator Jim Starlin admitted it. I loved Kirby's New Gods, he said, so I stole one of his characters and made him purple. But here's the twist. The copy outgrew the original. From Infinity Gauntlet to Endgame, Thanos became a global icon. Meanwhile, Darkseid stayed the shadowy god behind every DC conflict. Two gods, two universes, one message. Absolute power corrupts everything. And this battle, it was only the beginning. Because next, we're diving into the era when imitation became an art form, and copying wasn't the problem, it was the strategy. Ever notice how some of Marvel and DC's characters feel kind of the same? Different names, different colors, but the same powers, same costumes, even the same backstory. It's like they were drawn on the same comic book page and then split in two. After Marvel's big boom in the 1960s, DC started paying attention. Readers loved Marvel's heroes, powerful, yes, but also human. They failed, they doubted themselves, they felt real. So DC did what any rival would do. They adapted. Take Namor the Submariner from Marvel, first seen in 1939. He's the proud, arrogant ruler of the sea. 2 years later, DC introduced Aquaman, same underwater kingdom, same trident, same duty to protect Atlantis. Coincidence? Maybe not. Then came Green Arrow in 1941 and Hawkeye in 1964. Two expert archers, two massive egos. Even their trick arrows looked nearly identical. When the Flash raced against Quicksilver, fans started asking who's really winning the speed war. At this point, it wasn't inspiration anymore. It was straight up copying, but with style. But soon this copycat game would outgrow heroes and sidekicks, because next, we're going back to where it all began. The moment DC ruled the world and Marvel dared to challenge it. We've always wondered, how did this rivalry really begin? Two universes, two philosophies, but one mission: create heroes that define hope. Back in the early days, DC was untouchable. Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, they were the blueprint for everything that came after. But then came the 1960s and Marvel crashed the party. Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, and Steve Ditko gave us something DC didn't have: flawed humans with godlike problems. Spider-Man doubting himself, the Fantastic Four arguing like a real family. It was messy, chaotic, and readers loved it. DC noticed. And that's where the real copying began. Enter Doom Patrol in 1963, a team of misfits led by a genius in a wheelchair, Niles Calder. Months later, Marvel dropped the X-Men. In 1963, mutants, outcasts led by Charles Xavier, also in a wheelchair. Both stories about isolation, identity, and acceptance. Who copied who, no one really knows, but that creative echo changed comics forever, and soon it wouldn't just be about who created the better heroes, it would be about who understood them better. So where's the line between being inspired and just plain copying? When two heroes share the same powers, the same costumes, and even the same attitude, is that creativity or competition taken too far? By the late 70s and 80s, both Marvel and DC had found their groove, but something strange was happening. They started to echo each other. Marvel dropped Deadpool in 1991, a wisecracking, sword-swinging mercenary in red and black suit, and DC fans instantly went, wait, that's Deathstroke. They weren't wrong. Deathstroke came out in 1980. Same weapons, same skill set, same soldier-turned-assassin story. Even their real names rhyme: Wade Wilson and Slade Wilson. Coincidence? Yeah, likely not. Then came Moon Knight in 1975, Marvel's version of the Dark Knight, a rich vigilante, moon-themed armor, operates at night. Sound familiar? But while Batman's darkness came from vengeance, Moon Knight's came from madness, a fractured mind, a whisper from an Egyptian god. A copy? Maybe, but with a twist that actually made him unique. This wasn't just copying anymore, it was evolution. Both sides were pushing boundaries, trying to make heroes feel more human. but soon it wouldn't be about single heroes at all, because soon whole teams would start seeing themselves in it. What happens when the world's greatest heroes start looking too familiar and every symbol of justice has a mirror image? At that point, it's not coincidence anymore, it's a full-on showdown. DC had the Justice League, a lineup of legends: Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, and Green Lantern. They were basically the blueprint for what a superhero team should be. So Marvel fired back with the Avengers in 1963. Still a team of powerhouses, but this time led by human brilliance, not divine perfection. They weren't gods, they were people with problems learning to work together. But soon things got wild. Marvel created the Squadron Supreme in 1971, a team that looked exactly like the Justice League. Hyperion was Superman, Nighthawk was Batman, Power Princess definitely Wonder Woman. But here's the fun part. Marvel didn't even try to hide it. They used the similarity to make a point, showing how power can corrupt even the noblest heroes. And DC, they struck back with the crime syndicate, an evil version of the Justice League from Earth 3. Every ideal flipped upside down. At this point, the rivalry wasn't just copying, it was a conversation. And next, that conversation jumped off the comic page and straight onto the big screen. What if the real Marvel vs. DC battle didn't happen on paper at all? What if it played out on the big screen, not with ink and panels, but with billion-dollar universes colliding? When Iron Man in 2008 launched the MCU, no one saw what was coming. That movie didn't just start a franchise, it fundamentally changed cinema. Suddenly we had post-credit teasers, crossovers, and a massive connected world. It was fresh, it was bold, and fans couldn't get enough. But DC wasn't going to just sit and watch. After The Dark Knight in 2008 became a masterpiece of superhero storytelling, Warner Brothers wanted their own universe to rival Marvel. So in came Man of Steel in 2013, the first step towards building something epic. Sound familiar? Yeah, it was Marvel's playbook, just darker and heavier. But here's where it splits. Marvel had patience, DC had pressure. While Marvel built up slowly towards the Avengers in 2012, DC jumped straight to Batman v Superman in 2016. No warm-ups, no setup, just the big fight right away. Both mirrored each other, but one built an empire while the other tried to catch lightning in a bolt. And when Marvel hit its peak with Endgame, DC made a bold move. They stopped copying and started experimenting, because now the game wasn't about being bigger, it was about being different. What happens when copying turns into survival and winning means being yourself? After years of chasing each other's shadows, Marvel and DC finally hit pause. They stopped trying to outdo one another and started reinventing what superheroes could mean. Marvel shifted gears. Instead of bigger explosions, they went deeper. WandaVision in 2021 turned grief into world-bending magic. Loki in 2021 made time travel emotional, not just sci-fi. These weren't heroes saving the world anymore. They were saving themselves. Meanwhile, DC stopped catching up and just told stories their way. Joker in 2019 broke every rule. No CGI, no crossover, no shared universe, just chaos, pain, and raw humanity. Then came the Batman in 2022, stripped down, moody, and real. No flashy superheroes, just trauma hiding behind a mask. Both studios realized something huge. They didn't need to outshine each other, they just needed to feel real again. But as both universes evolved, something strange started happening. The line between inspiration and imitation began to blur again, because next the rivalry wouldn't just stay in separate worlds anymore. This time, the universes were going to collide. What happens when two rivals who spent decades copying each other finally meet face to face? Not in theory, not in fan fiction, but in canon. For years, fans asked the same question. Who would win, Superman or Hulk, Batman or Iron Man? And then, in 1996, it actually happened. DC versus Marvel, the ultimate crossover. A moment where the impossible became real. Heroes fought, worlds merged, Superman battled the Hulk, Wonder Woman lifted Thor's hammer, Wolverine went claw to claw with Lobo. Every fan war suddenly had an answer, and the wildest part, the winners were decided by reader votes. When the dust settled, something amazing happened. Amalgam Comics, a whole new universe where heroes fused together. Batman and Wolverine became Dark Claw. Iron Man and Green Lantern became Iron Lantern. It was insane, creative, and surprisingly beautiful, like a peace treaty made out of imagination. But that union didn't last forever. When the world split again, something changed. Both sides had seen what was possible when rivalry turned into collaboration, and fans were left with one burning question. If the universes collided once, could it happen again? Because next, we're stepping into the future of this rivalry, and trust me, it's closer than you think. So here's the real question. Has the war between Marvel and DC ever really ended, or did it just evolve into something else entirely? Today, both universes feel more connected than ever, not through rivalry, but through rhythm. When Marvel dives deep into the multiverse, DC answers with its own. When DC explores gods and legacy, Marvel counters with emotion and humanity. Each move reflects the other, like creative echoes bouncing across time. But here's the difference now. It's not about copying anymore, it's about coexistence. Both sides borrow, build, and blend because the truth is, they need each other. Competition fuels creativity, reflection sharpens purpose. Think about it. Would Thanos exist without Darkseid? Would Moon Knight hit as hard without Batman paving the way? Every copy turned into a conversation, one that's still evolving through comics, through films, through every fan theory out there. And as storytelling moves into the age of multiverses and metaverses, those boundaries are fading faster than ever. Maybe one day it won't be Marvel or DC. Maybe it will finally be Marvel and DC. Because after all these decades, the greatest power they share isn't strength or speed, it's the ability to inspire each other. And that's why we're fans of comics.